philosophy books. I think this section makes it very apparent that I'm not like a philosophy major. Philosophy people would have whole cases of the subject, and some of the things that I have here might not be included. I think I probably have 3 times as many books as this that could be considered for this section, but like, is Emerson philosophy? I think he is. He writes like philosophical essays, but then is Montaigne? Are all the essayists I have? And like, should Marx be here? I'm like, I have a ton of stuff about that guy. Did I leave? I left the paperbacks out. I feel like they complicated it. Like, there's definitely some here, yeah. There's a few that were on the philosophy shelf. Yeah, I think it was like all of these. I didn't like how much it emptied the nonfiction case. That was why I put them back there. But let's look at the philosophy section. Let's take a look. Epictetus, the classics. Oh yeah, I have a bunch of these Penguin classics with the white stripes on my fiction shelf. But I could probably fill up a whole case if I mixed the nonfiction and various sections in with it. Epictetus, a Greek Stoic and freed slave, ran a thriving philosophy school in Nicopolis in the early 2nd century. Looks cool. I should read it. This is by a guy who lives in Los Lunas, New Mexico, and I went to his house a couple times when I had this rug cleanup and delivery job and met him, and he told me about this book, and so I ordered it online, and then I got fired. Coincidentally, the same day I talked to a coworker about unionizing. Interesting. Why Be Moral? Bought this from House of Sarah Books in Cambridge, Massachusetts back in the day. Or no, I saw this there over and over again, and I later tracked it down because the title had imprinted itself in my mind. Why Be Moral? Alan Watts. Do yourself a favor and watch some videos from this guy on YouTube. Incredible. I find it so funny that in the movie Her, his writings become their own sentient AI thing. Source book in Indian philosophy. Look at this beautiful book. If I were to read this, probably inspire 100 more ideas and give me some great new context for the world. Indian philosophy. Wow. Look at this beautiful book. 1957. What are my neighbors saying? Are they knocking on my door? Some sort of plumbing something going on. The World of Thought in Ancient China. Incredible. I gotta read this whole section sometime. Just give it like a year. Well, now my heater's on. And like, William James is considered a philosopher. This was considered a philosophy book, I guess. But does that mean I gotta put all religion books in the philosophy section? Why Does the World Exist? Great title. One of those pop philosophy books that has a good theme. Like, what does it all mean? I think I used both these in my all book title essay. Essays and Skepticism. And then it's like, if I put every book about skepticism, that could fill up a section. Here's a proper philosophy book, Hegel. Classical paperback. 1953, wow. This one was a recent acquisition from somewhere. Outstanding Book of the Year, 2001. Psychology, Philosophy, Artificial Intelligence. Whoa. Yeah, and psychology, where does that fit in philosophy? I have a lot of psychology type stuff. Thus Spake That Zarathustra, beautiful hardcover limited edition I got from a free box. When I got this book though, it smelled so bad. Whoever owned this before me had like 15 cats and did meth all the time indoors with the windows shut. Somehow it aired out. It's printed for a 1967 club. And look at this ephemera newsletter. If you put this on a t-shirt, you'd find yourself drawn to some secret society. Did you know about the Heritage Club in San Claus? I have 3 copies of this book. This one in paperback nonfiction, and one in paperback fiction. In nonfiction because it's philosophy, in fiction because it's a narrative parable. Oh, you smell those cats and meth? Philosophy piece is all about it. Oh, the interruption earlier was they came and turned my heater on. Did I mention that? Maybe we can look at all these philosophy books. Apparently I don't have much to say about them. Look at this pretty little book. Why is there something rather than nothing? 23 questions from great philosophers. Oh, this is the kind of book you should leave out, probably. And it's so pretty. This is how nice hardcover modern books can be. Despite being small, looks like a substantial read. Love it. Beautiful. Good job, bookmakers. Perseus Book Group. Seneca, Letters from a Stoic. Yeah, pen pal. Guide to Philosophy, one of those basic overviews. An intelligent person. Oh, now the same person who turned on my heater is turning off the AC. I can hear him on the roof. I told him that the books warm the place up and are good insulation. And he said, oh yeah, that's why homeless people rip the pages out and stuff them in their clothes and use them for insulation. Emerson's Essays. Cool. Old edition. Weird. Random choices. Yellow, purple, black. What's going on here? Confucius. Analects. Here's one of the real classics people should read. More Alan Watts. And again, he's very philosophical, but you're bringing Zen into it. You're kind of bringing in religion. A religious idea, maybe. Why is this here? Oh, this is actually... It's nature writing, but it's like a philosophical defense of nature. Yeah, what is my philosophy section? This section's insane. Wendell Berry, this is philosophical. Literature ecology? What? They didn't know either. Nietzsche, why is this one here? This is a biography. Well, it's a biography of a philosopher. And like, why did I put this there and not the Karl Marx biographies I have? Why isn't this just in the skepticism religion stuff? Well, because Bertrand Russell is kind of a philosopher. And the book is considered philosophy. Took this out of the very short introduction section. Seem more appropriate over here, but some college classes are like ethics and philosophy. Are they different? Here's ethics, being good. Seems related, of course. Great modern essay collection by Elisa Gabbard of Denver. And she quotes one of my essays. That's a chapter of my book in here. And names one of her chapters after a line I wrote. Doomsday Pattern. Anyway, I take credit for that phrase. Because look, a writer I know named Michael Farrell Smith sent me a link to a lyric essay he wrote that includes the snippet of faux dialogue from an apt depiction of life in the pre-apocalypse. And it quotes a bit about the Challenger explosion. Felt as if some sort of doomsday pattern was beginning. I feel this way all the time now. Nothing is safe. Everything's fine. She's a great writer, great poet, great essayist, great writer about poetry. Feel bad I owed her a review of this book back in the day, and my whole life was in shambles or something at the moment. She was probably waiting for that and didn't get it. I can remember a tweet that was like, thanks to those of you that actually gave me feedback. Sorry. That's a great collection. Everyone should read it. I mean, this is like maybe one of the books to get about climate change. If I were a professor teaching a class on climate change or thoughts and attitudes and things about it, I would definitely include this. I stopped saying climate change for a long time after reading this, in fact, because it was like, it says in here, anything that's not saying global warming is speaking euphemistically, because that is the overall effect, the world warming up. Hume. That guy. Look at this old paperback. 66 and 67. Huh. Oh, I guess I have 4 copies of Thus Spake Zarathustra. It's hard to pass up a nice copy of Nietzsche. The force of his words and thought, pretty good. I love what he says. The quality of a person's writing is only as good as their ideas, and anyone that does not agree with this automatically will never understand it. Pascal. This is a really interesting and famous collection. Is this philosophy? Pascal's Pensées, little nonfiction thoughts, musings and thinkings, to quote Jack Pendarvis in The Believer. Pascal, 1623 to 1625 to 1662. His magnum opus that he never published. fragments of his. Probably be smart for every writer to have some sort of file like this where they just wrote little things, put down their aphoristic, shorter thoughts all the time, work towards some sort of cohesive philosophy over the course of their life. Sounds like a good plan. Because my book is about my whole life and it's kind of taken my whole life to write, it does have some elements of that. But here's a beautiful little modern edition of just one essay from Emerson, Self-Reliance. One of the great American thinkers, Emerson. Yes, a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. However, exactitude in some small matters is often the very soul of discipline. To counterquote from Joseph Conrad. But I think that was probably like a folk phrase that he was using in his writing. Anyway, a bunch of philosophy books. What's your philosophy collection like? Maybe it's amazing. Sounds from my YouTube comments like a lot of people's collections are really like centered around a topic or two. Someone will have like only war books. That's interesting. I don't have a war section, but there's definitely war in my nonfiction sections. The more cases I get, though there's limited space in here, the more like specific shelves I'll have. Maybe I'll get some of those invisible floating shelves that are just like on the walls here and there. Then I can have more like subsections. Books about Sweet Pea. Books about how cute Sweet Pea is. Here's some other philosophy to glance at too, real quick, though we're not being purists. I've looked at these before, but I think they were all just kind of spread throughout the nonfiction. Now they occupy a little corner here. Kierkegaard, classic. Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil, classic. Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. I suppose I should read that, become enlightened. The Way of Life, according to Lao Tzu. The Illusion of Technique. This I thought was a writing book, I think, when I got it, but it's philosophical. Schopenhauer. Willpower. Toad. Lila, the sequel to Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which I do not currently own and would like to own. It's a good book. More Emerson. What's up, buddy? Philosophy, you know? One of those subjects that makes people say, like, is this still a thing? Writers like Sam Harris have come up against this. I read his good little book about free will. Very interesting. You kind of have to become like a neuroscientist now to talk about the brain, talk about philosophy and movie magic. Ugh, such a bind right now. But there's a virtue in just hanging on, you know? Well, that's the philosophy books. A pathetic section. Any philosophy major would be sad. But maybe philosophy's stupid and nobody cares about it, you nerds. JK. But you philosophy types are, you know, you're doing your own thing. I would like to especially read that, like, World of Ancient Thought in India or China, both those, like, big picture stuff like that. I think this will probably be the next book I read from this section. But this is a contender. Why is there something rather than nothing? I think I actually read that one a long time ago. I read a lot of these, but you know, when you read these smarty books, they only so much stays with you. Unless you got a special brain. Usually require study. You got to read them more than once. See, also really most books. I think there's enough good philosophy here that if you were on a desert island and you only had this as your philosophy section, these books washed ashore in a trunk. Crap, these are the only books I have to read indefinitely for the rest of my life. Maybe these two. But I think if you that was the case, you'd get something out of it. You'd probably become your own intelligent thinker. You just have an incomplete map of what came before. All right, next I'm going to look at the notebooks in this box. I filled them a long time ago. Lots of notebooks. That could be a short video, who knows. You know, when you're working your way through a case, you got to look at everything that's there. We looked at the genre books, the poetry books, the philosophy books. Look at these notebooks, whatever this is. There. That Etch-a-Sketch is actually an edible cake. I don't want to cut into it though, because it would ruin it. All right, in conclusion, obey the kitty's telepathic mind prompts. Do what they say. Like, I wouldn't tell you to donate to this channel's PayPal with high pressure tactics, you know, guilt, twisting your arms. But the kitties will literally use telepathic electric shocks to get you to do it, so you gotta listen to them. Basically all like that kid in the Twilight Zone that can make people's mouths disappear. I've made my peace with that, and I live with their special abilities and the power they wield over me. I guess you know have to as well, oh listeners, oh viewers. Hit that PayPal up at Michael Farrell Smith, I PayPal. And get a mention in a future maximalist nonfiction masterpiece. No lie, I'll mention you. Any specific stuff, I'll even work it in there. It's a malleable book. It can hold multitudes. Philosophy. It's something I guess I've always wanted to have a better grasp of. I've taken philosophy classes in my life. Existentialism with Ian Thompson, one of the world's foremost Heidegger scholars. Another class with this T.A. Ethan, what was his last name? He was an expert in Indian philosophy and really had read all these like really interesting Indian works that had probably influenced the Greeks, almost certainly. What's his last name? I've read a lot of like pop philosophy books at times. I've gotten into the topic. I've always felt like I kind of love Nietzsche. One of my most popular things I ever did on Facebook back in the day was I had a photo album called Pictures of My Kids with Nietzsche quotes. And it was just pictures of my then 3 children with quotes from Nietzsche. And it was amazing. It was like psychological warfare a little bit. You let your guard down to say, "Aw," and then you have some powerful truth. Those that are deep strive to be clear. Those that want to hide their lack of depth are cloudy. Strive to obscure. That kind of biz. And sometimes a Nietzsche aphorism just is so pure. No victor believes in chance. Oh man, you got us all. Go Nietzsche. Sometimes people, you just know that they're powerful conduits for powerful ideas because life just uses them up and leaves them a wreck. Nietzsche was like a vegetable for the last 10 years of his life. I guess that's not a good term anymore. Who am I going to offend? People in deep comas? I think they've got other worries. His sister toted him around while he was in like a catatonic stupor for the last decade of his life, right? Or Karl Marx was just like he was covered in boils by the end of his life. Just like, I think it's no small thing to like plug yourself into like the sacred fire of idea and let it consume you, use you as a vessel. What is the deal with life? Anyway, that's why we have philosophy books, right? Asking such questions. When I used to hitchhike around everywhere, I always thought I should write a pop philosophy book called I'm friendly to everyone. I'm your best friend. You mess with me or my family, I will kill you. Because everywhere I went, I just heard this same thing presented to me like it was some original philosophy. And I guess I've come around to it. Yeah, that makes sense. Don't start nothing, there won't be nothing. But it would, if I had written that the way I conceived it, it would have been just like the most intentionally pandering work. People love to hear the philosophy they already hold presented back to them like it's some wisdom. Yeah, that's a very cynical version of my young self, apparently, that I just woke up there. Whoa. Well, it just was like boring and laughable sometimes to hear that same threat statement philosophy, but it kind of makes sense. I think that statement, "the unexamined life is not worth living," is interesting. Wait, are you saying animals don't deserve to have their lives? Plants? Maybe it's fine to have an unexamined life. Maybe all misery comes from intelligence. Hey, that'd be a good supervillain. Somebody who's trying to make the world stupid just so they can be happy. How I became stupid on a grand scale. If I still kept a little notebook like that, I would file that away. Did I record that? I said if I still kept a little notebook like that, I would file it away. Look at these next time. You know, and yet despite all your rage, you're still just a rat in a cage. You tried so hard and got so far, and in the end, it didn't even matter. Literature in the world of essays feels so small sometimes, but I bet philosophy is even smaller. I bet if you, like, who's reading these books about Heidegger and stuff? That's got to be like 1,000 people. Some people really love this stuff. I know at least one Emerson scholar. In fact, I used to have a lot of first edition Emerson hardcovers that were strangely in my family that I gave away to an Emerson scholar. I suppose if Emerson is deservedly in the philosophy section, he's the philosopher I've read most here. I read everything of Emerson's back in the day. He was a key early influence on me. I think he led directly to the book I'm working on. Because I remember thinking, what if all these essays told a story? You know, what if they were each told by a different figure in the story? Got me starting to think about a collection of essays as a whole book, a narrative, cohesive work. Then I thought about a fictional story with that idea for a long time. See those notebooks in that box tomorrow. And then it became a nonfiction work about my life. And now I've been working on that for 15 years. My inner core, who began the project, has long since died. But the husk that inner self was riding around in is still here. Still chipping away at reality to fall apart in a heap of dust as soon as this thing gets published. Well, class, I hope everyone enjoyed this inspirational speaker here today to talk about writing. This book is a demon succubus that's stolen my life from me. Never write a maximalist autobiography. Never. Anyway, philosophy. Pretty cool, right? Hooray.